So far, a modest weakness being seen on the market. Of course, very early days. We're only 3 minutes in. What are you expecting today?
We are expecting a weak start. Last week we saw the Australian market losing 0.8% and the SPI futures pointing to a half percent fall today. If we have a look at offshore markets, we did see the US market as well as European markets losing ground. And in Europe, German retail sales unexpectedly falling by 1.6%, so putting the growth prospects of Europe once again in focus. In terms of commodities, which makes up such a large part of our market, base metals were mostly lower. We saw copper prices down by about 1.7%. Gold prices pretty close to 5-week lows, and we also saw silver prices tumbling by 3.2%. Our big miners, BHP and Rio Tinto, falling in both London as well as in New York. If we have a look at London trade, BHP was down 0.8%, Rio Tinto was down by 1%, and then if we have a look at the US ADRs, we saw a fall of 1.7% for BHP Billiton and a 1.5% fall for Rio Tinto. We have just seen BHP hitting the boards, down by 0.5%, but it does look like we're going to see some weakness in that mining space. We also see a large number of companies trading ex-dividend, so that's going to be a weight on the market, mostly mid-sized as well as small-cap companies, but includes the likes of Vaciano, Brambles, Boral, Challenger Financial Group, Iluka, Monadelphous, Worley Parsons, as well as What If. So altogether, it does look like a pretty weak start for the Aussie market. Some ex-dividend stocks as well as the material sector looking to weigh.
Now, as we were just hearing there about the RBA, the meeting tomorrow, most economists tipping rates will be left on hold. Is that the main event for this week? What else are you watching?
It's a pretty big week here domestically in Australia. As you mentioned, we will be watching that RBA interest rate decision tomorrow very closely, and the consensus is that rates will remain on hold at 4.25%. The RBA in the past has indicated that perhaps we could see more rate cuts if Europe worsens. But we have seen the European situation getting better, so it is likely that we are going to see rates on hold. But then on Wednesday, we see fourth quarter GDP numbers. We're expecting to see growth of 0.7% quarter on quarter, or growth of 2.3% for the year. So that's going to be very important for the Aussie dollar. And then on Thursday, another big set of numbers. We do see the job numbers out for February, and the market is expecting to see 5,000 new jobs having been created here in Australia, but the unemployment rate to tick up slightly up to 5.2%. Of course, offshore, it's pretty big as well, and China is a big one for the Australian market, especially the resource space. And on Thursday, we will get some CPI numbers, so an inflation read. And we are expecting to see a pretty big drop in the inflation numbers, down from 4.5% to 3.4%. So that's going to be watched very closely by the mining space. And then on Friday, we see the labour force numbers, the job numbers, non-farm payroll numbers for the US. And that's going to be a big one in terms of currency markets. And 210,000 jobs are expected to have been created in the US, and the unemployment rate expected to have been steady at 8.3%. So with earnings season really at a close here domestically in Australia, the focus is going to be on macro numbers coming out, and it's going to be a huge week in terms of economic data.
Billabong's back in focus. What's expected, Julia?
Look, last week we heard a bit of bad news about Billabong, that the negotiations with TPG had really come to a standstill, but amazingly the share price held up pretty well. And if we have a look at Billabong's share price in the last 5 sessions, this is what it looks like. And you can see that the shares hiked all the way up to $3.15. And now a bit of an explanation on why those shares were so well supported. It looks like Gordon Merchant, of course, a very large shareholder in the company and the founder of the company as well, boosted his stake last week from 15.1% up to 15.8%. So spending just under $8 million to acquire shares. And it looks like he acquired those shares at $3.13. It looks like after that buying abated, though, the shares really falling down more to a support level around that $3 mark. But while negotiations with TPG may have come to a standstill, there's still been a lot of speculation that we could see other private equity companies such as KKR and Blackstone getting in on some action. So we saw an FT Financial Times article last week talking about these private equity companies and how they could potentially be bidders for Billabong as well. So it looks like the main thing is to get some of the major shareholders behind a potential bid. Gordon Merchant in the past has already indicated that even a $4 offer may not be enough to get access to due diligence or be an acceptable reflection of value of the company. So it does look like he has put his money where his mouth is and really backed the company, increasing his stake, buying into the shares at $3.13, and that should help to support the share price today.